We're in Albania.
Hello everyone, in the next 50 and a bit minutes, a little bit of summer and all about Albania.
It's been 10 days, 9 cities, 1,700 kilometers, 1 country, and an awful lot of beautiful views. Albania is the country to expect the unexpected, and I'm going to tell you why I think you should come to Albania. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Albania, one of Europe's poorest countries, but what it lacks in money, it makes up for in other ways. A country full of beaches, mountains, lakes, curious people and, well, bunkers. But we'll find out more about those later. In fact, Albania is a largely underestimated country when it comes to tourism, and not many people know much about it. A country with an interesting past, twined with communism, mafia and drugs, it's somewhere that's starting to prove itself, with its stunning nature and amazing views that we'll discover in this coming episode. But today, we're starting not with nature, but with the main city, Tirana. Tirana is a fantastic young city, a melting pot of young and old, colour and grey, a city that's having its bitter past wrestled away from it by the younger generation that wants a brighter and happier future. Like in every other European capital, there are cafes on every corner, lots of cars, people, bicycles, and of course, lots of restaurants. There are, however, a few major differences, the first of which is how green the city is. Everywhere you look, there are plants, trees, grass, and flowers in every corner of the city, even on the rooftops. Albania is a very biodiverse country with over 30% of all the types of European plants being found here in the country.
One of the amazing things about this city is just so green. Not just even the parks and things like that, but the streets and the roads. And it's amazing because it's like walking through a jungle and it just adds a real nice colour to the city. Just everywhere you look, it's just green.
But really, just look at how green the city is. All of this greenery just gives the city a fantastic feel, and for me personally, it doesn't give such an overwhelming feeling like the concrete jungles of other big cities. It's just a pleasant place to walk around in. Tirana isn't just a green city though, it's splattered with all different colours all over the city. Green, red, pink, orange, almost like walking through a bag of Skittles. Albanians like to throw colour into everything in the belief that it'll brighten everything up and make the environment better. And, well, I'm not in disagreement. Even the cemeteries look like a child has been let loose with paint.
The city hasn't always been this colourful. In fact, during communism, it was a very grey city. It took one of the mayors after the fall of communism to order the city to colour its buildings, just to give it a different feel.
Even though it's the capital city, it doesn't feel crowded, and you rarely get stuck in crowds of people. This could be due to the population of Albania being, well, pretty small.
If I told you there was 10 million people in the world of Albanian descent, how many do you think actually live in Albania? Is it A, 10 million, B, 5 million, C, 7 million, or D, 3 million? Well done. The correct answer is 3 million.
The fact that so many people live outside of Albania shows how bad things got towards the end of the communist reign. And it's not the only effect that communism had on the country.
In fact, communism in Albania was so strong that when the country finally opened up, people used to collect things like Coca-Cola bottles as souvenirs.
Tirana is a really good city for tourism. People here are friendly, and there's plenty of things to see. The main things of which I'm going to show you now. This is Skanderbeg Square, the main square in the city. Now the biggest pedestrian zone in the Balkans, it is surrounded by many of the main buildings of Tirana. For example, the National History Museum, Palace of Culture, and a statue of the main man himself, Albanian hero Skanderbeg. The history is a little boring, but the square itself is just a pleasant place to be.
The atmosphere on the main square is just fantastic. It's just so relaxed and chilled. As soon as you get to most big squares in big European cities, you're just swamped with tourists and people trying to sell you stuff, but I've not even been approached once yet, which is, really refreshing.
And the view from above the square shows that it has an unusual digital camouflage pattern. The square has changed a lot since it was originally built, with it changing nearly every 4 years in design. But that can't be said for this next stop, the Great Pyramid of Tirana. However, this one isn't so great. Built by the communist leader's daughter as a memorial and museum to him when he died, the pyramid has brought about much critique in the years that it stood. The most expensive structure built in Albania at the time, for the last 20 years, the locals have been debating what to do with it. Some wanted to destroy it as a way to get rid of the memories of the past, and some wanting to restore it. But, as quite often, debates go on, and the pyramid has degraded for the last 20 years, leaving it in a state that you see today. Finally, it was decided to restore the pyramid.
Unfortunately, the pyramid is closed at the minute due to restoration, but in the end, it's going to look like this.
The idea is to completely restore the pyramid into a new structure that can be used as a central hub for technology and development of young people. It'll be an open green space for people to enjoy. The restoration should be complete soon, so come and have a look yourself. The final thing to show in the city centre is the Grand Park of Tirana. As if the city wasn't green enough, the state decided to build this entire park from scratch, and that means that the lake is also man-made. It's like any main park in a city, but it's a really relaxing place to be. People come here to walk, run, walk their dogs, work out, be with friends, let their kids play, celebrate weddings, and generally just relax in the afternoon sun. There's even a large open-air theatre in the park too. The park is large enough to escape the noise of the city and quiet enough to get lost in the small pathways that run through the forest. But that's where our journey with the city centre ends, because our next goal is currently in the background. To be exact, right here. To get there is something that in itself is unique and Albania's top tourist attraction.
I want to show you Tirana from the best viewpoint possible.
The best way to get there isn't by walking, but instead,
we're gonna go on one of those.
Welcome to the Dajti Express. This Austrian-made cable car is 4.7 kilometers long and rises over 800 meters. Whilst it isn't one of the longest cable cars in the world in terms of distance, it certainly is in terms of time.
I always think that getting out of the city is where most of the beauty of a country lives, and I think today is going to be no exception.
All that's left to do is buy a ticket and get on board.
Let's go!
It takes 20 minutes to get from the start to the finish. The finish in this case is the entrance to one of Albania's 15 stunning national parks, of which we'll see at least another 3 in this video.
When you're traveling in such a small capsule like this, traveling through the mountains, you just feel so insignificant amongst the backdrop that is these huge mountains. And these aren't even the biggest in Albania.
The journey is pleasantly quiet and is very pretty.
It's kind of like the feeling as if I've died and I'm being transported into heaven.
And after just 20 minutes,
oh my goodness, that view is amazing. Oh, you wouldn't believe.
welcome ladies and gentlemen to the balcony of Tirana. This is one of the most popular places to visit for both locals and tourists. And other than the views, which are fantastic,
holy moly, that's fantastic.
There is even a hotel, mini golf, restaurants, birds and chickens, shooting, children's playgrounds, skate rink, outdoor gym, horse riding, go-karting, more children's playgrounds. Well, you get the idea. You can even go paragliding for the bravest amongst you. Oh, and of course, more greenery and nature.
Oh my goodness. Just when you don't think it can get any more beautiful. The first thing you notice about its ridiculous beauty is the fact that it's a lot cooler up here. Probably by about 10 degrees. But there is one problem. I'm not at the highest point. That is the highest point.
That's right, the Dajti Express only takes you to 1050 meters, meaning the final 563 meters we need to climb ourselves. The hike is about an hour long, is 5.5 kilometers in one direction, and is constantly uphill. But nonetheless, the walk is peaceful, passing abandoned buildings, forests, meadows, and not even a single other tourist.
In all honesty, it's not quite as easy as you would think. In a lot of national parks they have like maps and things like that, but here, no maps. You open Google Maps, find a point you want to go to and try and go as direct as you can. Hopefully you'll find a path on the way.
Once you do find a path, it is marked out with red and white markings to help you find your way to the top. There is, however, one unexpected moment.
I literally just scared myself to death. I was walking up this hill and I was looking down because it's quite steep, and I looked up. I saw something that looked exactly like the Witch King out of Lord of the Rings.
For those that have seen the film will know what I mean. For those who haven't, here is a comparison. And please, do go watch those films. The climb has about a 10% gradient, and after climbing for 15 minutes in the sheer heat, there's only one word to say.
Oh, fuck.
Half an hour later, and you think you finally reached the top.
Oh my goodness. Is that it? Is that the end? The next mountain's even in cloud. But this is supposed to be the one that you can go to highest to on foot. That still looks higher. I think it still goes on. I think this is it. I think this is the top. It certainly looks like it. Oh my goodness. Wow. What a view. Wow. Oh my goodness. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's moments like this that you feel like you've reached the top of the world. It's probably the highest point I've ever reached on a mountain. And even though it's not that high, the feeling is amazing. The view from the top was by far the best I've ever seen. It was almost like looking at a painting in front of me. And the fact that there was no tourists around at all made the moment even more special. I was the only one at this point. It's the kind of place that you could stay at for hours. But we have to move on, as there is more that I want to show you, and even more amazing places. But first, I need to dry my t-shirt. In this national park, there are two other things close to the city that are worth looking at. One of them is visible from this mountaintop. It's called Lake Bavila. There's one particularly special thing about this lake that makes it worth traveling to. First of all, the colour of the water is spectacular, and something that we'll get used to in this episode. But this reservoir of water is what provides all the drinking water for Tirana. The lake is so deep and large that after the construction of the dam, it took 2 years for the reservoir to fill to the level you see today. The final point of interest in Dajti National Park is the Columbus Caves. This set of caves is about 400,000 years old, and there's only 6 of these types of caves in all of Europe. They have an interesting colour in the rock, and this particular one is 360 meters long and is regarded as one of the country's most beautiful caves. It's about a 30-minute hike to get there. Once you've arrived, you're able to go into the cave and face whatever waits beyond.
That.
The time has come to leave Tirana and see what Albania holds in store for us away from its main capital. And for this, we need a car. But first, a little bit about the roads.
Driving in Albania. Now, for those of you that are worried about this topic, I know there's some people on forums and things like that that are telling people don't drive in Albania. Please do not listen to them. Driving in Albania is fine. It's like any Eastern European state. A lot of the information on forums is old. It's what was around 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And as a result, it's not actually actual information anymore.
In fact, the roads in Albania are really well done. And the country has received a lot of money to make them better in the last 5 years. There are, however, exceptions, where the road just, well, stops. Things that you can expect to see on the road vary from guys selling CDs, to donkeys and cows, chickens, and, well, other unexpected guests.
No way! No way! Come on, you gotta move. You can't go around here. Come on. Come on, pick you up. Huh? Oh, man. Look at you. Your face was just underneath that truck. Huh?
One other thing you'll notice is that the Albanians love Mercedes. They're literally everywhere. The sort of feeling that if you don't buy yourself a Mercedes, then you're not really a man. And therefore, it would only make sense if we also hire a Mercedes. So, wake up early, get to the airport to rent the car, and go! No, don't be so silly. Things are never that simple.
Unfortunately, the guys were super late to the office by an hour, and there's problems with the car, so we're already delayed this morning. I hope we'll be on the way soon.
But finally,
allow me to introduce to you the team.
it's not quite a Mercedes, but it'll do.
So here's the deal. We have 7 days to travel 1,700 kilometers, see 9 different cities, and try to film all of it. Here is a map of Albania. You can see the cities that we're going to visit, but the problem is the roads aren't the most direct. I think it's going to be tough, but we'll try our best.
Whilst driving to our first stop, let's enjoy what Albania has to offer on the roads.
Today I want to show you the main city that tourists come to in Albania. And it's not Tirana, because everyone would think it's the capital, Tirana, but it's in fact another city.
The first stop on our journey is here, the city of Berat. This city is often called the City of 1,000 Windows. There's a lot of windows in each house, and they're all pretty much the same size. As a result, visually, the city looks as though it's made up entirely of windows and not walls. Here you can find well-preserved traditional Ottoman-style houses and an old castle on the hill.
Berat is one of the oldest cities in Albania, and believe it or not, but 200 people still live in this castle to this day.
Berat is under protection of UNESCO, like a second, equally interesting Albanian city, Gjirokastër.
I get the feeling that this place is really peaceful, really calm.
Being in Gjirokastër, you feel a real sense of an authentic atmosphere that hasn't been touched too much by tourism. In fact, there are more wild dogs here than tourists, which you might want to stay away from. The city has been built on a hill, which makes it tiring to walk up and uncomfortable to walk down, and even more difficult to drive through. The local buses really don't look like they fit in on these narrow winding streets, and driving through the city can really be quite a pain.
On these streets you've just got to keep driving, especially when you're going uphill. If you stop, there's only one way. It's going to be rolling backwards down.
The city is particularly pretty with beautiful surroundings to keep you busy, and it's a great place to meet the sunrise.
It's the first time in my life I've woken up at 5 AM to take a video of a bridge.
The streets are pretty and use the national Albanian TV to film shows and music videos, as I was lucky enough to witness. You can walk along Gjirokastër's narrow streets for a long time and still not bump into anyone.
To be honest, it can be a bit nerve-wracking walking down the streets on your own, especially when Europe's biggest drug capital and mafia is just 10 minutes down the road.
This, my friends, is the small mountain village of Lazarat. Believe it or not, but this village used to be the wealthiest village in not only Albania, but all of Europe. You may expect then the village to be filled with 5-star hotels and fast cars, but not anymore. If you came here 5 years ago, all of these fields that you see now were full of marijuana. Yes, that's right, this was the biggest growth field of marijuana in all of Europe.
In fact, if you've tried marijuana in places like Amsterdam, this is probably where it came from. And it took $6 billion a year from selling marijuana.
To put that into context, that is over half of Albania's GDP just in the sales of marijuana.
The whole village used to be outside of the government's control until 2014, when the government had a shootout with the local mafia and won.
There are still remnants of the town's past life everywhere across the concrete walls that keep what would have been prying eyes out. The villagers said that there was no such thing as money in the village. Instead, marijuana was traded for food, services and other supplies.
The average person that worked here used to get $50,000 a year, 10 times the average, and he only worked 3 months a year.
The village even has its own oil company, and the only station in Albania is of course found here.
The thing was, it wasn't everyone that was involved in the drug ring. They arrested everyone that they thought was involved. To be honest, with the houses that they built, it was quite clear probably who was involved.
I certainly know whose door I would be knocking on.
Since then, it's been a relatively safe village, but I have seen people calling just because they've seen me with a camera, so I think it's time we get out of here.
Now, we're travelling further down south towards the border with Greece, which means we'll see a lot more Greek road signs and more sea views. But on the way, there are a couple of interesting places that I want to show you. The first place I want to show you is called the Blue Eye. This is a unique phenomenon that can be seen here in Albania in a couple of places. The Blue Eye is a natural water spring where the water comes from deep on the ground under high pressure, and the temperature of the water doesn't change year round and is a cold 10 degrees.
They don't actually know how deep it goes. Divers have gone down to about 50 meters, but after that, no one really knows.
Every second from underground here emerges 6,000 litres of water. Not only is the Blue Eye itself amazing, but the colour of the water. The water is so clear that if it wasn't moving, I don't think you'd even know it was there.
Just like your everyday spring water, just as good as Evian.
The water in this country truly is amazing, and there are many different kinds of natural springs in Albania, like this one here. Here you'll find an old Ottoman style bridge with amazing background views next to 4 thermal springs. One of the main differences between this spring and the Blue Eye is that the temperature of the water here is year round a warm 23 degrees and is very pleasant to swim in, which I wasn't going to miss a chance to do.
Locals even say that it has healing properties, so not to miss a chance, of course.
The other difference is that the source of the water is rich in sulfur and smells, well...
It might be beautiful, but it does smell a bit.
What might surprise you is that the rest of the people here aren't other tourists, but are in fact locals who come to the baths to relax in the evening sun.
It's lovely and warm and the water is like silk. It's really nice. One bad thing though, no matter what country I go to, I always forget my towel.
Yeah, sorry mum. But it's not a problem, as getting changed in the car is just as easy.
This car is too small.
The next part of our journey takes us to the sea, and for those amongst us who love the sea, you're in luck, as Albania has a whole 2 of them, the Adriatic Sea and the Ionian Sea, and it has beaches that will please any of the most passionate beach loungers. The roads here are great fun to drive on, and there are 3 main things to see along the Albanian Riviera, the first of which I want to show you is the famous and probably the biggest road in Albania, the Lagona Pass. The road isn't the most beautiful in the world, but considering its height, it's probably one of the highest.
Mighty Citra, go, go, go! Wow, look at that, look at that.
The road winds and curves 27 kilometers all the way to the peak of 1,027 meters. And only once you've reached the top, do you finally realize how high you've actually reached. Not very far away from the Lagona Pass is another interesting place along the Riviera. This once used to be a Soviet submarine base and is still used to this day as a navy base for the Albanian forces. You could say it gained fame from the British TV show Top Gear, when they visited here in 2011. There is also another UNESCO national park you can see on the Riviera, which consists of an old Roman era town. But considering there are much more beach lovers amongst us than history lovers, I'd rather show you the beaches along the coast. Of which here, there are many. Most are empty, have stunning colour, and are just a beach lover's paradise.
One of the best things about having a car, even when you're in a city like Tirana or something like that, is that you can get out and go to these beaches that are not as crowded and actually a lot nicer, to be honest, than the ones in the city.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. Because tonight, we're going to go camping.
One of the great things about Albania is that you can camp pretty much anywhere that you want. Another great thing is that it's got a lot of places where you want to camp. Wild camping in Albania is pretty special. Beaches are empty, secluded, all you have is the beach, sand, sea and the sun. I found this little beach to be a fantastic place to camp and, well, I think it's perfect. But first, we need to set up the tent. For this you're gonna need
1 large 2-man tent, sleeping bag and a sleeping mattress.
Let's see how this goes.
After setting up the tent, there was only one thing left to do. The beach was super calm, and watching the sunset was just bliss. The morning was equally as calm and beautiful. Except that part. And camping here in Albania is something that I would completely recommend to do. Waking up to the sound of the waves and the calmness of the sea can at least be described as an excellent start to the day, and something that will definitely put you in a good mood.
But first, a little bit about safety. Albania is genuinely quite a safe country, but it's super safe if you're in the middle of a nuclear attack or a zombie apocalypse. That's because there's 700,000 of these bunkers in and around Albania. That's almost one bunker for every 4 people.
These bunkers are pretty much everywhere you look in the country. They're hidden on a lot of street corners, hills, along the seafront, and in pretty much every point of Albania that you wouldn't expect. Some are hard to find, some are easy to find, but some are upside down. In fact, you see them very often while driving, and by the third day of driving, they just become a usual feature by the road.
Bunker, 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 bunker in the distance. Bunker, 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 bunker.
There was a large tunnel network built on the bunkers of Tirana for extra defence, but for many, they're just a sore reminder of the past and an eyesore for the otherwise beautiful countryside. They are, however, part of the history of the country, and the people of Albania added some colour to brighten things up and come up with some interesting ways to make them more attractive by turning some of them into decorative items, advertisement boards, museums, and there are also rumours of a bunker hotel.
The reason Albania has so many bunkers is because the communist leader at the time, Enver, he had cut off all ties with his allies, and he was afraid of an imminent attack from America, from Russia, from Europe at any time. And so he built 700,000 bunkers across the country in places that most people can't even get to. This was all in anticipation of an attack. And the whole general population was expected to fight.
Maybe not everything in Albania is safety minded, however.
Guys, take a look at this for a ferry line. People queue up, get on, get off the other side. Just a normal ferry.
Yes, this ferry is managed by the locals using ropes and pulleys to get vehicles and people from one side of the coast to the other. Without this valuable lifeline, vehicles would have to drive around 40 minutes to get to the other side. It costs 500 Albanian lek to cross with a car, which is about €4.
P&L Cruises, watch out. So here is the situation. As you can probably hear, it's raining very hard in the minute. So I've just arrived in Shkodër. Tomorrow we're supposed to be going to Theth, but regarding that I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is we can't go to Theth. I spoke to the people on the beach yesterday. They had just come from Theth and they had a huge 4x4 and they still couldn't get through because there is still snow. Even in May, there's still 3 meters of snow. So Theth is a no-go, unfortunately. So the good news is we have a plan B, which is to go to Valbona. Now Valbona is another village that's in the same valley as Theth, so it should still be very beautiful, but it's a long way around. It's about a 4-hour drive. So I think at the minute, I was going to go out now and shoot Shkodër, but there's thunderstorms at the minute. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't know what's going to happen. No way going out on that. We will get soaked.
The only thing to do was to wait for morning, and well, thankfully the weather cleared up a little. This is Shkodër Lake. It is the largest lake in southern Europe and is shared by 2 countries because here is Albania and here is Montenegro. The lake stretches out to a huge 44 kilometers and you can take a nice day trip to Montenegro from Shkodër. This isn't the only lake that Albania shares with another country, as it shares another lake with North Macedonia. Lake Ohrid is one of the most famous lakes in Europe, as it is the oldest and deepest lake in the region. Most of the tourism is concentrated on the North Macedonian side, which is here, but the Albanian side is also a pleasant place to stay.
A super quick tour of Shkodër.
Shkodër is one of the most ancient cities in the Balkan area. It has had strategic importance throughout history and is one of the wealthiest cities in Albania.
Shkodër feels like one of the more richer cities in the country. It feels more like Europe. It feels more like a European city.
It's a city of bicycles, old buildings, and of course, a castle. But none of that is what brings me here, but more its position as the access point to the Albanian Alps, which is our next and final destination. Driving into the Albanian Alps, the first thing you notice is that the roads get significantly narrower and more dangerous. You think that the roads are good, and then it just turns into a gravel track at the side of a cliff edge before turning back into a normal road.
Why didn't they just finish this road?
Rocks fell from the hills, and the mountain animals seemed to be even braver than those I'd met before.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, you start to see even more of these.
The locals always put the graves up here for people that have died on the roads. and unfortunately it always seems to be on a bend.
There were too many of these gravestones to count on the 4-hour drive. Thankfully, the state of the roads didn't affect us too much.
When you have bad roads like this, one of the good things about renting a car is that you're not too bothered if you hit a pothole too hard. As long as you get your money back at the end.
The rain stopped me from shooting a lot, but it led to some strange effects on the road, like this water evaporating straight from the surface of the road. And finally, when the rain did clear, we were able to get some flying in. But that leads to another problem.
It's crazy because on every turn the view just gets better and better, and I really want to take out the drone and show you guys exactly how it looks, but if I did that on every turn, man, I'd probably be here for 3 weeks. Oh my goodness, just one more time. It's just like a sin not to film this. Oh, last time, I promise. Last time. It's amazing, you just come to a country you have no expectations about. I mean, Albania, who's heard about Albania before? And flip, it's surprising, it's just super surprising.
Honestly, before coming here, I had no idea that there were such views like this in Albania. Valbona is a kind of city detox, somewhere you can come to escape everything. It has fresh air, fresh mountain water, lots of hiking, and of course, amazing views.
After driving 5 hours in one direction to get here yesterday, you start to realize just how isolated from the rest of the world this place is. It's amazing, it really is. I arrived quite late last night and I just got out of the car and it smelled like wood burning. The forest was around, the mountains were still slightly visible. There wasn't enough light to film anything, unfortunately, but it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And if I didn't like this country enough already, then after coming here, man, it's really nice. The colour of the water here as well is just emerald. It's unbelievable how hidden and well isolated this place is. And it's a real shame that today's weather is so bad, because I could probably spend, I don't know, a week here at least. There's plenty of places to go walking, running. You can go and climb mountains as well. And I was just in awe of how beautiful it was. Like, I was looking up everywhere. The mountains are just so powerful. One thing I've always thought about when I've been in places like this is the people who live here, do they get bored of the beauty that surrounds them, or do they always value it like they would have done? When you're growing up here, do you just think it's normal? Does everywhere look like this? Or when you move here, for example, do you start to get bored of it? What happens? I mean, we all have things that we don't value anymore after being with them for quite a while, and I wonder if this is the same. Albania, you have been a big surprise, a positive surprise, something that I never really expected. I came here with the expectation really of finding another Eastern European country that would be similar to Croatia or even something like the Czech Republic, but I found something completely different. I found something that is so raw and untouched, which has something for everyone. And I think Albania gets the reputation of just being the Riviera. I think there's so much more to Albania than just the Riviera. I think now is the time to come. Tourism in Albania is not developed at all. You don't have a souvenir shop on every corner. People here are very relaxed and open to tourists and more curious than anything else. The country was closed for almost 100 years and has opened up in the last 30 years. As a result, it's not developed as quickly as a lot of other countries around Eastern Europe. It's cheap and it's good quality. And the things you can find here are amazing. Come and travel to Albania. It's completely worth it.